Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan off Motor City Madmouth, coming up with a big show for Pundit. I don't know because Jacob Christner followed me over from one place to another, and I'm joined by Jacob Christner, JB Ellis, and Smoking Jeremy B, aka Fire Up Michigan. But we decided to bring him over on the Wednesday chilled here tonight so he can talk a little bit of knowledge and be as candid as he always is. So
Who,
anyway,
me?
why don't you let everybody know a little bit about what we spoke about first before we go around the horn?
Well, what do you want to?
Jacob.
Oh,
you wanted me?
Pundit.
So you wanted me? I thought you were talking to Jeremy. I
No, I'm
apologize.
talking to you. Yeah, we had a pretty good show on Pundit. We covered a lot of interesting stuff.
The greatest thing that we've been able to talk about was we had all kinds of different. We had everything from TMRW and everything that Tiger Woods, Serena Williams, and all of them were starting to do. They're starting to promote and they're starting to invest in. We talked about the Miami Marlins and their women in front office. We have all kinds of next week. We'll be talking crypto and the failures of crypto, and along with the failures of the naming rights now that the crypto is dying and the new chances of naming rights, what we have to do. So we talk about that next week.
That'd be really good. So, all right, anyways, here's the title of the show, folks. I'm eating crow. Now, I know everybody here is wondering why I titled this show Scott's Eating Crow. Well, I have to really tell you, and this one really applies to you, Jacob and JB. Last week, I asked you, did college basketball start too early? And you guys said, no, you could start it as early as you want to. And I'll tell you, why am I wearing a Florida Atlantic University cap? Well, here's the reason why I'm doing it, okay? On November 14th in Gainesville, Florida, Florida Atlantic 76, Florida 74, the biggest upset ever. For fact, I should say the biggest win ever in Florida Atlantic University history. Well, I think that these games are irrelevant. I guess FAU didn't think that way when they took the track up I-75 to win. So I'm going to tell you right now, Dusty May is the guy in charge of Florida Atlantic, and there's no question it was the biggest win in program history. And both teams, FAU and Florida, are both now 2-1, miles apart in terms of the conferences. One's in Conference USA, headed to the American Athletic Conference a year ago. And we know Florida is with the Southeastern Conference. But what makes it so interesting is in Florida Atlantic's 28 seasons, they're 336 and 544. Some of the names that have actually coached at FAU include the likes of Mike Jarvis, Rex Walters, Sidney Green, Michael Curry, and even Matt Doherty. So there you go. Okay, JB, college basketball, I guess, doesn't start too early when you see stuff like this happen.
No, it's amazing. I mean, Louisville's the first team to lose 3 games in a row by 1 point. And the teams they've lost to, Louisville's in trouble. This is a different team.
Well, the biggest thing about it is they were just talking about this. John Rothstein talked about this. The ACC has lost 7 buy-in games, like through these teams that buy games. They've lost 7 of the first 9, and Louisville and Florida State are 5 of them.
So, JB, you ever heard of Florida Atlantic University before?
Of course I have.
Okay, yeah. Well, we all know that their football program gets a little bit more notoriety than their basketball program. But just think about it, if you're Florida Atlantic University, winning up in Gainesville 76-74, that's a pretty impressive accomplishment for the Owls, isn't it, JB?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really. I mean, when I heard it, I think, wait a minute, am I reading this wrong? Albeit, I know my eyesight isn't good, but it was good. We get the media releases, we know they're good. What about you, Jacob? You ever heard of FAU?
Oh, of course. That'd be Howard Schnellenberger. So, yeah, I know about FAU very well.
Very good.
I know about them very well, but it's like these buy games now, they are not automatic anymore. The main reason that I did say that they don't that doesn't start too early. The reason I said that in the first place was because you get these teams. You go to FAU, go to Stetson, you go to all of these little small schools now. The ones that you consider going to the NCAA tournament and losing the first round by 50 points. That was what the old days were. Now, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago an NAIA team going to Syracuse and beating them. go. The NAIA team went to Syracuse and beat them. Athletes now can go anywhere. They don't just have to go to the biggest schools. This isn't a whole time where you go to Notre Dame because they are on NBC. You don't have to have a TV deal. You don't have to get anything. You can just basically go online and have a little streaming service for your little itty bitty school, and people notice you. You can get to the NFL draft that way. Just being seen. It's a different world. Athletes are everywhere. They're not at the biggest schools anymore. They are the best. I mean, if you look at I looked at games from my areas like Quincy University, Lee University, where I went to school. I look at these. When I used to watch, they were nice ball games, but you didn't ever see them beating Auburn or any of those teams. You look at these teams now, you look at these athletes, and it's like, oh my dear God, it looks like Division I. Yeah. Just the way that they move, just the movements, their footwork, the speed. I'm just seeing those, and it's like it's a different world, and it's in smaller schools. So no, that's the biggest reason.
Yeah, well, and I should point out too that as much as we talk about how the early season mattered, Michigan State lost a close one to Gonzaga and came back and went out there and beat Kentucky in overtime. So, all right, Jeremy, let's focus on FAU since you don't get a whole lot of it. I have a niece that actually goes there.
Florida Atlantic University, I haven't heard of them, but yes, I have heard of them. But the reason why the small schools are doing better early is because those schools actually usually develop their players for the 4 to 5 years, whereas all the big name schools have new guys coming in, learning the system every year because of those 1-year deals to get out or 2 years to go to the pros. Right. So there's a higher turnover rate. You get a better developed team, they're going to play better to begin with because your starters are going to be all juniors and seniors, where your sophomores and freshmen are coming off the bench usually.
And you know what? Bullseye. That's an excellent point. It really, really, really is. I mean, let's face the reality. FAU, certainly when you look at enrollments, one of the biggest ones in the state. Unfortunately, when you're in a state like this, you have Florida State, Miami to go along.
Florida.
Florida, Central Florida,
a bunch of schools,
my alma mater, and then FAU. I mean, it's pretty strong stuff that we have a state with a dearth of talent. It really is, and I'm happy for them. Listen, I've been working with FAU since 2007. Covered a lot of their sports. Now it's hard to get out as often as I am because we're building obviously a network here in addition to going where I can. But more power to them. I'm happy for the Owls. I really, really am, and I hope that they can take this win over Florida. And it leads to a springboard for a lot of good things to come. All right, well, let's go on to the next subject. You ought to feel at home with this one, JB, and I mean literally and figuratively, okay? New York City Football Club will pay roughly $780 million to actually for a private funded stadium. I believe it's going to be a 25,000-seat soccer stadium on city-owned land across from Citifield. It's supposed to be completed by 2017. They had a playoff game at Citifield versus Inter Miami, which they ended up winning, and they're currently playing at Yankee Stadium in Queens. So you have the Mets, you have the U.S. Tennis Center, and the Nets. So, JB, if anybody can speak from experience, okay, what are your thoughts about Queens as a sports borough?
So, I mean, Queens has always had the Mets. It's where Robert Moses wanted to put.
Siri Phil versus Inter Miami.
Well, Siri got involved, so don't worry about it. But anyways, go ahead.
So, Robert Moses originally wanted to move the Dodgers there back before they moved to LA. They wanted no part of it. And when the expansion Mets came in 62, they've been in Queens ever since. Got a lot of highways. It's a good area. They're developing it. It's, right near the airport, easy for teams to come in and out. Definitely think it's, a good spot to put a stadium like that.
Yeah, and they talk about Queens being an area where, I think there's a lot of culture there with it being a worldwide area. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably one of the most diverse boroughs.
Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Jacob, some thoughts about Queens?
Oh, yeah. It's like the biggest thing, if there's ever a way to talk about Queens, just there's a show that I'm watching now, Reboot, on Hulu. And biggest thing to that is the fact that it's like the whole idea of there's a whole storyline on it right now where there was some woke writers that were worried about being in a writer's room with a bunch of old Jewish writers from Queens. And the first thing I said to my brother the minute I said that is, you talk about any, and you can agree with this, JB. You talk about any people that's not going to give a crap about woke gay writers. It's Queens. It's people from Queens. They are not going to. It is not. They have seen it all. They have seen it all. They were the people from New York. I have noticed this because I've been in New York, and you live in New York, but I've been there like 3 times, met the different types. They absolutely positively they have gone out of their way. They have seen diversity way before any of us did. Am I right, JB?
Without a doubt, it's by far the most diverse area. I mean, even back, television history with Archie Bunker, he's from Queens. You can see the diversity, in a show that can never be on the air today. Look at how diverse it was way back then.
Italians, black.
That was in the 70s, and now you're talking, almost 50 years later.
Italians, black, Chinese. They're all over the neighborhoods, and you're right. It's a show. Well, no, it's a show that needs to be on today, but it couldn't.
Do you guys remember the last episode when before Johnny Carson went off the air?
No.
I've seen it, but I don't remember.
Do you remember the brother to Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire, the one that did his makeup and turned him into Mrs. Doubtfire?
You're talking about Nathan Lane?
I believe that's his name. But anyways, he comes out and he goes, "Johnny, I got a joke for you." You got to watch it. That's all I got to say. It's hilarious.
Well, let me mention a few things about Queens, because when they talk about the soccer thing, let's face the reality. They're playing currently at the Yankee Stadium out in the Bronx. Is that correct? I think that. Mm-hmm. So this project should be completed in about 5 years.
Yes.
So 2027, not 2017, right?
Why didn't I say 2027? I thought I said
you said 2017. That's why the numbers stuck in my head.
Well, it is what it is. I was going back to the past, not back to the future. So there you go.
Well, they're going to. Well, the biggest thing now. The biggest thing now is having this. We're going to see more of this. They started in St. Louis, got themselves a standalone soccer field. They were getting it in some women's stadium's going to be doing it. It's like soccer's not going to be sharing with football stadiums and stuff like that anymore. It's over.
Yeah, but you can say that, but don't tell me that double standard out in Seattle where they're playing with the Seahawks and why Detroit shouldn't have gotten one. Well, when they were Jeremy and I both know about that.
Detroit is making a metroplex for the soccer fields for the women and the men.
Yeah, but you're missing the point. The reason why they didn't get an MLS team is they wanted them to build on that jail site. And the Fords offered a logical alternative. So why don't you do it at Ford Field? We'll close off the top level. And I went to that new Atlanta stadium. I don't know what's called, Mercedes-Benz. Is that what that thing is?
Mm-hmm.
Falcons and Jaguars. And they're allowing them to play there. So I think the MLS needs to really kind of keep it consistent across the board. I really do. And that may be for another topic. Or maybe pundits might want to get involved. But the reality is MLS should be more consistent. Now, am I happy that they're going to put it on city land where there's probably a lot? I don't know much about Queens. Only thing I know about it is I've flown into I think LaGuardia Airport. Is that the one that's over there? I believe. So, I'm just.
It's right next to LaGuardia.
Right. And I think Shea Stadium was there, but then they tore that down. And now they have Citifield right nearby. So
right next door,
more time there down the road when I return to New York. But I'm happy for them. They can go out there. And there's enough land there. Now, I will say one thing about Queens, and I know we haven't talked about it yet, and we don't have to elaborate and dwell on it. Kyrie Irving picked the wrong place to start messing around when it comes to diversity with all that anti-Semitic stuff. I mean, you don't open up a can of worms there. Of all places, and he's still paying the price. And I still think to this day he should be blackballed, but we'll leave it at that. So, Jamie, since I brought the topic on because of you, so give me your overall conclusion about Queens as a sports borough. I mean, just
so right now they have the best stadium in New York. Citifield is beautiful. Unfortunately, the new Yankee Stadium is garbage. The Citifield is by far an amazing place to go see a game. The Met fans are great, even though I'm a Yankee fan. Fans are fans, and I think that they're phenomenal, and I think it's a great place to go to see a game.
But
And
question, JB. Question,
Yeah.
real quick. What makes the old? I've heard this from more than one person. What makes New Yankee Stadium garbage?
So the old Yankee Stadium had an ambiance to it. The new Yankee Stadium is like Petco Park in the Bronx. It's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not Yankee Stadium.
Right.
I mean, I get you can't keep rebuilding the old stuff. Eventually, you need something new, but I don't know. It just doesn't have any ambiance to it. It's very cold and corporate, and just
Yeah.
it doesn't feel the same.
Right.
Where Citifield is the same way. It has all those luxuries, but it feels like a nice place to go.
Sure.
So when you look at Queens in its entirety, though, again, you've already said that Mets Stadium, Citi Field's good. I've never been to the U.S. Tennis Center, and of course Barclays Center. I don't know much about it, so. But it seems like they're the ones that have probably the most active in the sports business, aren't they? Queens compared to the other boroughs. I know Manhattan have the Knicks.
So
And
actually, it would have been. It's kind of diverse because Brooklyn has had the Islanders and Nets. Manhattan's got the Rangers and Knicks. Queens had the Mets. The Bronx had the soccer team and the Yankees. And now the Islanders move out to basically Queens. It's on the border of Queens and Long Island.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's all over the place.
Yeah, well, again, when you have a city that size, I guess you could spread them out all over the place. So I don't know. I just found it an interesting topic that obviously you've got the New York City Football Club going from the Bronx over to Queens. And again, there's a lot of activity all over the city, albeit in, I think you have like 5 boroughs. So, all right, at any rate, next topic, we're going to talk about one that I wish I didn't have to talk about. I think we all know what it is. The tragedy at the University of Virginia, Saturday's game versus Coastal Carolina canceled. Now, Jacob, in words, to me, how do you put this whole thing in perspective?
It's hard to. It really is. It's like people make these things political, but I mean, it would be just as tragic if he did it with any kind of weapon whatsoever. It's like, I don't know what's going on here. My perspective is the fact that we are just an angry people, an angry country. It's just anger, whether it stems from depression, whether it stems from COVID when people stayed in, people went crazy. We're just angry and divided. And we don't have anyone I don't think they're even trying to bring things together. They're not trying, because I call it, and JB knows what I'm talking about. You'll see it plenty of times when you'll see me on Twitter, Jeremy. You'll see it plenty. I'm pretty open. You'll see it. I call it hit and run media, and I put it in hashtag hit and run media. Hit and run media causes the chaos, and it causes people anger. We don't try to bring anything together, and it just makes things worse.
Well, the problem is the major media markets are owned by both sides of the political parties. So they kind of direct the media now. And it's all about division, separate. It's Wag the Dog. You remember that movie?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Watch this over here because we're doing this and you can't see it. That's what's going on in America. They're dividing us, and it's slowly pulling what made America great apart. The last great time there was in America when Americans cared about fellow Americans was during 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And it's disgusting.
JB?
Go ahead, JB.
Listen, this whole situation with shootings, it's got on way too far. I don't care if you're left, right, Republican, Democrat, African American, Chinese, Alaskan, it doesn't matter. Enough is enough.
Agreed.
These kids were on a bus back from a field trip. Over the summer, people were at a parade in Chicago. You have kids that went to school that were slaughtered. It's disgusting. Now, if you don't want to restrict guns, and I'm not saying that's the answer, come up with viable solutions, work together, left, right, middle. Everyone should be involved in this. You know, it doesn't matter your race, your religion, your creed, your nationality, your, you know, what side of the aisle you're on. Innocent people are dying for no good blanking reason. If you don't think enough's enough, when it happens to, unfortunately, somebody in your family, and as we've seen it's happened to, you know, our politicians multiple occasions over the last few years, it's disgusting and it needs to stop.
The only thing I can think to do, and it isn't really restricting it, but have a stricter background check that goes more into the mental health of the person buying the gun. That's it.
You know, the thing I bring up is there was a deal, the whole Christmas parade of Waukesha, Wisconsin, and that piece of garbage who ran him all over. He just got 660 years in prison. And I'm very glad of that. But it got a total of about 4 minutes on the. You talked about the R&D both running the media. It got 4 whole minutes because somebody. Go ahead. I'm sorry, JB.
Oh, it's an absolute joke, Jacob. It is, and you know, like Jeremy said, they're doing such a great job dividing us. You know, listen, we're a bit older on this show compared to. You know, sideline sports where I'm the old guy. So here we actually remember when politicians on both sides of the aisle worked together. It got crap done. Today, it's a travesty. These people that are elected to office, and it goes for both sides, every political organization that's out there, they don't work together. It's all about I can one up you. And it's
I called it hit and run. I called it quote unquote hit. I mean, all right, the hashtag is on my thing. I say it quite a bit. Hit and run media. It's hit and run media. It's not trying to get any real. It's not trying to get any real facts out there, doing any kind of real work. It is okay. What's next? Boom. If we're wrong, we didn't say that. It's like pro wrestling. It's like pro wrestling and the bad guy heel. I didn't say that. I didn't lose. I didn't do that. That is hit and run media.
I think the one thing that I want to really mention. And I've been watching a lot of press conferences, and the Virginia coach, you talk about a guy who was in a tough spot. The one thing he said that stood out in my mind was you prepare for a head coaching job, but you don't prepare for it in this way. You're not, I mean, think about it as an assistant coach or whatever to get to a head coaching level. You can talk strategy, you can talk about motivation, but there's no way to prepare for a tragedy like this. And be able to console so many athletes and students and families. You think about it. All these kids went to Virginia under this man's watch. And it wasn't his fault. I mean, it's just unfortunate. No, and he knows that, JB. But here's the deal. You're never prepared as a coach to deal with something like this. That's all there is to it. But I got to give the Virginia coach a whole lot of credit. He's handling it with a lot of class and dignity. The school's certainly going to make arrangements for all these students to go to each of the 3 funerals. And my thoughts and prayers to the family for all the 3 that passed away, and a speedy recovery to the wounded victims. But see, I experienced something like this here locally when Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I'm sure by now everybody's heard of that incident on February 14th, where the Parkland shooter, I think he was sentenced to life in prison, and the prosecutors were hoping for the death penalty. They kind of worked that way. I won't go there. But you're right. I mean, this is just, again, there's so much publicity about it that more and more people do it. And this guy here, from what I understand, picked his targets. He knew who he wanted to kill. It's not like it was a premeditated. But however it turns out, it is so sad.
Well, if he knew his targets, that is premeditated.
Yeah, well, that's it. But you know what?
Just think, but, you know, Scott, listen, you know, the fact that we keep saying, you know, our thoughts and prayers, you know, we need more than that. And I mean, yes, it's important. We should always remember the victims and the families. I mean, that's really important. I don't think
But that's who the thoughts and prayers are for.
Right.
I don't say thoughts and prayers as in a weak ass thing.
No,
like you're saying. You know,
we need to do more as a society. It's pathetic. You know, happening once is okay. More than that, this is at the point where it's every week, every couple of days. There's another one of these stories. Whether it affects sports or not, it affects all of us, and it's just pathetic.
Well, as a parent who's lost a child, when I say thoughts and prayers, it isn't the same as when Joe Blow says it.
Well, you know what I hate about all of this? I'm wasting 5 minutes of our time talking about something I could think of better things to talk about. But yet, as a journalist, first, I have a responsibility to address all kinds of topics, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I really hate what we're talking about now. Unfortunately, there's no way to avoid it. And it's important to get different perspectives from every one of my analysts here about what you think. And I think we all know that the whole stupid thing in Virginia stinks. I know the Virginia Tech game probably could be canceled, probably as well. If it is, nobody's going to lose sleep over it as well as go. No, the games are a bad thing. First of all, these kids couldn't even prepare this week for Coastal Carolina anyway, so they haven't practiced.
Well, and you know, you bring this up. I think the first step, and I'll say this, Jeremy, I'll say this, JB. The first step that we've got to get is we got to call this as it is. As I said,
right?
Go after the hit and run media, go after them hard. It's like I said, I just brought up Waukesha, Wisconsin. A guy got like 676 years, something, or 680 or whatever, so whatever years for 667 or something, running over all those people at a Christmas parade, and it got like 4 minutes on the news because someone was afraid to offend. It's like we have got to quit that. We have got to quit. We have got to quit having a stick up our butt. We have got to quit having a stick up our butt. We have got to quit the whole thing. We have got to admit you can't. Yeah, you can go after the 17-year-old kid firing a weapon in the middle of a riot. You can go after him all day long. I don't mind. That kid was a moron. But you don't go after him. Try to go say you don't use the spew. You don't use the shrews on the view to try to get him to get him in an electric chair and do all this stuff and then hide this. That you don't do all, you go after them all. And when we start going after them all and we start doing this, we start making this equal, hit and run media dies, then this starts to stop.
No, you're right. And all you guys make valid points. I won't go on much further with the topic. It's just an unfortunate thing we have to talk about. And I'm glad we're addressing it. And that's as far as I want to go with it. So again, rest in peace is all I really can say. I mean, I can't console them. But the one thing I will mention about Marjorie Stoneman Douglas real quick before we move on to the next topic is Candy and I went over to a funeral and of Aaron Feist, the coach there. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen, knowing that a football coach was doing something to try to protect these students when a lot of the police officers and security people were there wasn't enough of them, and it was a bad situation all the way around. So, but yet it was when you talk to the family, and I was at something that didn't need to be, but I was. It's totally unfortunate. But anyways, you know what? We're moving on. Okay, so here's a much easier thing to talk about was Philadelphia Eagles 32-21 loss to the Washington Commanders, the best thing that could happen to the Eagles.
Wow, you read my mind, Scott. I was saying that today. Actually, last night on the show, I said theoretically at this moment, there are 3 teams that have a shot at the number 1 seed in the NFC. And it's scary. My Giants are actually one of those 3 teams. I don't think that I'm saying that they're going to be the number 1 seed. But today, realistically, there's 3 teams. There's the Eagles who have 1 loss, the Giants who have 2 losses, and Minnesota who has 1 loss. And, the Eagles have the tiebreaker over Minnesota at the moment. And that Dallas-Minnesota game this week is huge. But I think that loss to Washington is going to light a fire under the Eagles. And that was the one thing we didn't need because they were playing great football before that. So that's a bad thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've always believed that, number one, when New England went undefeated but lost to the Giants, at least you could feel good about that. Okay. But losing a game, I mean, remember the Chicago Bears many years ago, their only loss occurred to the Miami Dolphins. How'd that work out? All they did was win the Super Bowl. So here's a little something for you, Jacob. Detroit, we don't have such luck, so let's just leave it alone there.
Well, the biggest deal about the Eagles right now is the fact that it's like it's a hot. I mean, and the same is going to go with Buffalo eventually. They lost a couple in a row. This is the thing that happens during seasons. This is the biggest. This sport has the biggest parity in sports. Right. It does. I'm just saying the NFL has the biggest amount of parity in sports. It's like the Bears are a miserable team, and they just annihilated on national TV the Patriots in Foxborough. Absolutely annihilated them. It was just it wasn't even close. Even at 14-10, it was a
Mm.
it was
And it was mostly Justin Fields as
yeah,
always.
I know, but I'm saying the defense even and the Bears have a terrible defense. Their defense just beat the crap out of them.
And their defense got worse.
You know what?
And their defense just got worse.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing I'm saying is they're a miserable defense, and they did that. It's like it is very hard to make bets in NFL circles of any type, unless it's like over under for points, because you cannot go straight up games anymore. You can't say it. I mean, it's been that way for years. I still remember it's been 15 years. I still remember when Detroit was 0-16 and they gave 14-win Indy a hell of a fight. I mean, in Indy.
Wasn't that if it wasn't for Dan Orlovsky, they'd have won the game because he walked out the back of the end zone?
Yeah, I don't want to.
Well, no, that was against Minnesota. But
I had to go there.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, though, Indy, if Indy had 13, 14 wins, and they go to Indy and lost by like 1 point, and it's like it's been this way for like 15 years. You don't get this kind of parity in a lot of sports right now.
Right.
And NFL has that. And that's just, and the thing is, I can't even worry about Philadelphia during that. I'm not going to worry about Buffalo. Yeah, you have struggles because these teams are good. You just adapt. Just adapt, and it's ready for that. You know, and the Giants are going to have the Giants are going to make the playoffs. They're going to have a couple of struggles. There's still time, but it's like, we'll see. Huh?
I'm just saying today, record-wise, there's 3 teams in the race. I don't think the Giants are a legitimate shot for the number 1 seed. If that happened, I would laugh hysterically for like a week. But it's nice to say, 9 games into the season that there's a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Before we go any further, I just want to let everybody know that you are watching the Sports Exchange on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. So if there's a reason to subscribe, get to see us talk, and as well as the other shows that we have. And if you're on a subway, whether you're on the bus or whatever, the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. You can add Spotify as well. So just to let everybody know that you can find us a lot of different ways. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So you can hear us, audio, visual, whatever. South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please subscribe, as well as all iHeartRadio, Apple, Google. So go ahead, guys. Just want to make sure we got that identification out there. So the reality is when you lose a game, okay, to me that means they have a little adversity. And when you get adversity, you get mad. And when you get mad, you come back. And again, let's face the reality. We got 2 guys from cities that hadn't had to deal with that before. The Giants beat the Patriots when they were undefeated down to that last game. And what did it mean? Nothing. The only one celebrating were the Miami Dolphins in 1972 because they were the only undefeated team to ever win a championship.
And that's still the same team.
And they have the final 9. And they have the final 9 old people left that go celebrate.
I know. That's beside the point. But meanwhile, well, they do. I mean, it's something they're proud of. And so far, lots of, I can get into another topic about how
why they can't win another Super Bowl.
What's that?
It's why they can't. Same with the Bears. It's why you can't win another Super Bowl. You keep looking back to the past.
Well, you know what?
I'm going to disagree with that.
Well, me too. When your past is pretty good, you do like to have a good memory now and then. But meanwhile, what the hell are you worried about there, Chris? I mean, geez, old Pete's, man.
I'm worried about my Bears. I'm worried about my Bears. They can't get out of the past. I'm just doing it. They can't get out of the damn past. I want the Bears to get into the future. I'm sick of seeing them get their butt kicked all the time.
All right. Well, you know what? Life could be worse than it could be in Detroit. We'll leave it at that. All right. So,
well, hey, do I get a say on this subject because I got skipped over?
You do get a say on it, Jeremy.
Detroit's going to get better.
So the only thing you're going to get a say on, okay, is a topic at hand. Philadelphia Eagles. Was it a good thing for them to happen?
Yes, it's a good thing because you know what? It took the pressure off of being able to go undefeated. That is pressure that's added to the team, and every week it's like, oh my God, is this the week? Oh my God, is this the week? That pressure's gone. Now they have nothing to do but play reckless, abandoned, and pissed off as hell because they lost a game. That being said, the only reason why Washington won was the adjustment made on defense. They used a wide 9 defense. That wide 9 kept the outside linebackers in the spy so they could keep their corners and safeties in coverage. And every time that Hurts tried to roll one way or the other, there was an outside linebacker or a D end right there in his face. But what he should have done is what he did in the first quarter. He was rushing up the middle because that's where the holes were.
Okay. All right, we got one more subject, and then I want to spend a little bit of time on parting shots. Justin Verlander wants a similar deal to former teammate Max Scherzer's 3-year, $130 million deal that he got with the Mets. Would you give it to him smoking?
Seeing how his innings have gone down, like I said, I said this the other night in one of your shows. He had, up until 2019, he was averaging 200 innings per game. He hasn't had it since. Now, granted, that was because the one surgery kept him out for a year and a half, and the other one was the other injury that kept him out for a year. That being said, I don't know if he's worth $130 million at his age because he hasn't stayed healthy lately.
Okay, that's fair enough. What do you think, JB?
Absolutely not. I mean, why? I mean, you want to just give money away to one guy who's as old as we are to
Right.
hope he continues to be an ace? No, thank you. I'd go take two really good outfielders or an infielder, maybe a decent starting pitcher. I could get 2 or 3 good players for that price, and not have to worry that maybe he'll be good the next 2 years or 3 years.
Jacob?
Bring him, as I said, get him to the Yankees to the 3 years, 130, and he can go with Garrett Cole, and then JB can have a lot of fun.
I don't know
You don't
why.
want to see me. You don't want to see me rooting for the Yankees, and I can't stand Garrett Cole. He's useless. And if you bring Verlander with him, it's going to be 2 out of every 5 days where I'm throwing stuff at the TV and I'm hoping they lose.
No, the Verlander, he's just. I'm sorry, we're getting more and more to this into the people. It's like Brady got there. We're getting people wanting to keep coming back.
He's not a $40 million a year guy.
No, he's not.
I'd say he'd probably be worth maybe $20 million to a team that needs somebody at the back end of the rotation that can give him 5-6 innings.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
I'd even go as high as 25. That would be my cap.
Well, that's what he would have earned anyways with the Astros had he have stayed there for the last year. It was $25 million.
Right. It's what he's worth, though.
Right.
I am not
But that's what they
fond
were
of.
going to pay him.
I'm not fond of him playing anyway. I'm not fond of people acting like Ric Flair lately and just saying, I want to keep going. It's like you're gonna blow something out. Eventually, you're not Nolan Ryan. It's like I want people to start understanding how to invest their money and just be able to go when they can go. It's like it's not happening lately, and it's like, no, I do not believe he's worth that much. And I'll agree with the 20 to 25 million, but 1 year. Finish this out.
I'd even give him 2. I wouldn't go 3. 3 is pushing.
That'll be 45. That'll be 44 years old, though. I'm not.
Listen. I have a thing. I understand not wanting to have to worry next year. I don't mind giving a second year so we can have the ease of mind knowing he'll have a job if he performs. But I wouldn't go past 2, not with his age.
Yeah,
Right.
You know what? I'll go along with each and every one. Yeah, $130 million. I think the one reason why I would guard against it is think about what happened to Max Scherzer during the year. He was starting to show some arm fatigue as well. And how much time did he actually have to take off a little bit during the season for the Mets? And now you're talking about Justin Verlander. To me, 3 years, $130 million. And I love what Jacob said, too. If anybody would pay it to him, it might be the Yankees. And he's been their nemesis for a lot of years. And Jeremy and I can attest to that because the Tigers ended up beating the Yankees in the postseason a couple of times, twice. And who was the guy there? JV was part of that whole thing.
One was a shutout, and I think the one was a no-hitter.
I don't think he had a no-hitter, but it was a low hitter is what it was. I don't believe so. I'm not really going to – it doesn't matter. He was a part of 2 series wins against the Yankees when he was paired with actually Scherzer and the rest of them. So, no, 3 years, $130 million, I don't think I would go ahead.
Absolutely not. No.
I mean, 2 years maybe. I might even stretch it to $30 million if you want to be generous, but that's a generous number. But 25 is what I think he's worth. So, with that said, okay, I'm going to give everybody a chance to give us a few detailed parting shots. I like coming up with ideas, but you know what? Sometimes I just like hearing from you guys. All right, Jacob, give me your parting shots.
Let me tell you this, Jeremy B. I'm going to say this, but my parting shot is toward your team, the Lions. And it's a good parting shot because it's going after my Bears, which I do that quite often. If your team gets rid of Dan Campbell at any point for the next 5 years, you're out of your absolute unmitigated mind. You
I
are
agree.
building something there. Unlike Chicago right now. Because yes, got Jeremy. We have got Justin Fields. We've got that thing. He is a star. But all the Bears fans tend to want to do is look at they want to be able to be entertained. They're not worrying. None of them are caring about winning. None of them. And the thing is, you know what's going on in Detroit? You're caring about winning. There are people asking if this is Dan Campbell's. They care about winning. I like Campbell. It's like maybe he's not the greatest. The whole thing with maybe he's not the greatest X's and O's coach, but there's something about a locker room that loves you, that loves everybody. That's a family. I don't see the Bears having that, and and I'm thinking Detroit is coming up, and I'm hoping you keep. I would personally right now. I don't care even at 3-7 or whatever record you're at. Give them 5 years. Give them 5 years and get with it. It's because you can just keep the Bears down at that point in time. They're not building around Justin Fields.
You're absolutely right. And Brad Holmes said it best in the offseason, and everybody ignored it because they bought into the Hard Knock site.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Holmes says this is not the season where we're going to be great. Next season, after we finish the defense, is when we're going to start making our playoff push. He said that like 3 weeks prior to the first episode of Hard Knocks. And everybody ignored it because Hard Knocks came on like, Dan Campbell said this is the team that can and will. I mean, I love Dan Campbell, but everybody bought into that hype and added extra wins to their prognosticating. But prior to that, I said 5 to 7 wins, and that's probably what they're going to get, which is still a mega improvement from last season.
I said 3 to 4 first year, 6 to 7 second, to playoff third.
And that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if that's where you're at, give me your parting shot, Jeremy. You have another one?
You know, I'm just happy to be here, guys. I don't know what else to say. I mean, prayers, thoughts and prayers, and rest in peace to the ones who passed away over the weekend. We also had another incident at another school that happened out west that I heard about. So, and that actually was a shooting. The insanity and the violence does have to end. Something has to happen.
Yeah, it does. Hopefully soon. No matter what president's in office, you're still going to have a problem. It's a dilemma that until we get it better under control, we have to do it.
At this point, it's an epidemic. It's happening so often.
Really.
It isn't. It's on the verge of having COVID numbers over the last 10 years.
Yeah,
it's truly disgusting.
It is.
There's no reason for it, and the fact that people don't get it, or
blow it off,
or you see it's children that are getting killed, and people go to work, and kids at school, at parades and malls, these are places where you don't envision something bad happening. I don't know. It's pretty sad.
Mm-hmm.
All right, JB, give me your parting shots.
So, we're a week away from Thanksgiving. We have the baseball season just wrapped up. Thank God. There was too much already. My team wasn't going to win. I don't really care much about the team that did win. It was a waste of time. We got college basketball just starting up. We got everything to look forward to in that, to see who's going to come out on top this year. A lot of great teams, a lot of great upsets. We talked about Louisville before the show, the first team ever to lose 3 games in a row by 1 point to unknown teams. Then, we got college football coming towards the end of the year. We're going to see who's going to make the playoffs, which will eventually be fixed. But right now, the Big Ten's looks really good. And, I think that they have a shot to make some noise. But I think the SEC is still going to end up winning with Georgia. Then we got the NBA coming into the second month of the season. We got the NHL. There's so much good sports on right now. I don't know how I have time to do shows. I just want to, you see, I keep looking up. I'm watching the basketball game right now. There's, we got MAXshoot going on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. There's so much. I can't even keep up with it. But
that's gonna be you and your wedding day. You're gonna look up at the TV while they ask.
but what I want to know, the NFL, how do teams lose leads? Like Buffalo this week, the Bears, Dallas up 14 points to the most overrated quarterback on the face of the earth, and let that piece of garbage get back in the game.
It's called the prevent defense.
And then Stephen A. going.
The announcers were talking about it in that Green Bay game. Why are they only rushing 4? They stopped sending the linebackers. They weren't hitting Aaron Rodgers, and that's why they lost the lead. And then you got Jeff Saturday and Parks Frazier, 2 high school coaches with no NFL experience, out coaching Josh McDaniels and the Raiders.
Well, I think any of us 4 could do that.
How Josh McDaniels has a job. When he went to New Orleans and lost, when he went to
Denver
and lost, how he gets back on the plane after these games and they don't just leave him at the airport,
Because every time he leaves New England, they have a down year offensively. He comes back and he looks great as an OC, and they're like, oh, yeah, he's from Belichick. He's got to be good at head coaching.
No.
How many head coaches from the Belichick tree has been successful?
My favorite meme is we need to have a game where we take anybody off the couch to outcoach Josh McDaniels every week.
I don't think it'll be that hard.
Well, to answer your question, Jeremy, the only one that comes to mind now that you asked is Bill O'Brien. He's the only one that I think probably has had any kind of success because of what about
Vrabel? What about Vrabel, though?
Yeah,
but he's not from the coaching tree. He was a player. Yeah, there's a big difference.
All right, but that's okay. But they're both quality names. Let me go to Bill O'Brien. That situation when Joe Paterno was let go and the Jerry Sandusky fiasco, Bill O'Brien stabilized the ship, and then they eventually brought on James Franklin, who I think is doing a very admirable job at Penn State, and Vrabel being obviously a player who learned his lessons well. Now, with that said, okay, you talk about a player like Vrabel learning from Belichick. We can laugh at Jeff Saturday all we really want, but just because you haven't coached doesn't mean that you haven't gone out there and learned under some quality people. And while everybody's piling on Saturday the way they are, and they really are, okay, when you look at where that Indianapolis Colts offense was going, what did you really have to lose anyways by bringing in Saturday because he was a consultant? Well, hold on, Jacob. Okay.
No, you're right. But
okay. I mean, what did you really have to lose? All right, maybe it's not the most conventional way to get a head coaching job by going from Bristol, Connecticut, all the way to Indianapolis, Indiana. But nevertheless, to me, it's not like he can't motivate guys to begin with. He certainly he's learned from some good people. He played under Tony Dungy, right? Didn't he? Okay. Tony Dungy's not a bad guy to learn from. Jim Caldwell wasn't so bad either, and he's revered there. So,
and I'll say this: I think this is Irsay's way. I think this is Irsay's way of saying put Matt Ryan back in. I think it was his way of saying the thing is if you put what was his name? Parks
Frazier.
If you put Parks Frazier and Jeff Saturday in there, you have no choice but to put him or Nick Foles in there to call the dang game. You don't put Sam Ellinger in there. You know this. You knew this. It was Irsay's way of saying you got to get the veterans back in there because Reich wasn't going to do that.
Well, where Jim Irsay looks really good in this whole thing, what few people don't understand is this. He's really telling you that analytics don't mean a darn thing to him is what he's telling you. I want somebody to measure with their gut is what he's doing, and he feels that Saturday will do that. Saturday's ignorant. He don't care about analytics. All he knows is what he did as an offensive lineman. He's a student of the game. You know who Jeff Saturday reminds me a little bit of, and I mean a little, is Larry Bird. And you know why I mentioned Larry Bird and Jeff Saturday together? Larry Bird may not have been the best athlete on the planet, but he's one of the smartest ones you've ever seen. And I think didn't I mention that on Basket Pros the other night, Jacob? I believe that he's the smartest athlete I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like It's like, but at the same time, but that's the thing is, he's going to have a little more of a test this week. But
well,
it's like
that doesn't matter whether he's
Yeah.
got a test. He's got one win, okay?
yeah.
So,
That's
I mean,
one more than people thought.
in my
but you're
opinion,
right.
he's on house money anyways. What I'm telling you is Jim Irsay is saying, well, everybody uses analytics to panic, okay, which a lot of these younger guys are doing. He's pretty much saying he's got to use analytics. And to me, I'm bringing in a guy that uses his gut. When the going gets tough, the gut get going. And that's something, that's a good line for you. When the going gets tough, the gut get going. Bye-bye analytics. Okay. And that's where I'm at with that. So
listen, there's nothing wrong with analytics. It's just it can't be a be-all and end-all. I mean, I get it.
PFF is made that way.
If you treat analytics like a 15-pound fillet, then you're going to be eating as much crow as I did tonight. Okay, after going ahead and tell you that the college basketball season doesn't mean anything earlier when I was wrong, thanks to FAU beating Florida. Okay, so now I'm coming full circle with the whole thing. Let me give you a couple of parting shots of my own. Okay, number one, don't know if the Detroit Lions will defeat the New York Giants. Okay, but at least the South Florida market, New York City South, okay, has the game on, and I can watch it from home and not a sports bar. How nice is it to live in New York South where the Lions get to play the Giants? And when we do this thing next week, JB, and it will be a Thanksgiving type of show, okay, so get ready for next week's Sports Exchange. Thankfully, okay, the Dolphins are on a bye. The Buccaneers, I don't know how many games we see of them anyways, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Every team that had to be on a bye this week was good because now I get the Lions and the Giants here in my friendly confines. Beautiful thing. And I'll say one thing about the Giants, JB, okay, and a guy that Jeremy know that I can't really deal with, and he knows who I'm talking about. You know, when we got into a debate with it, I said the Giants will be better than you think. And the guy criticized the Giants. And let me tell you something, pal. Brian Daboll's the coach, and here's a guy to me is the difference in this whole thing. And 7-2 for the Giants. They're on house money anyways, and all I can say
way ahead. Way ahead of where I expected.
My advice for the Giants is re-sign Daniel Jones and make Wellington Mara. You don't
No. You had me until that one.
No.
I don't know. Well, regardless, Brian Daboll's done an outstanding job.
Yes.
Well, I'll quit while I'm ahead.
I'm cracking up. I want to say, can the Lions win this weekend? Yes, because any given Sunday. If you actually take out quarterback rushing against them, do you realize they're actually 15th in rushing defensively against running backs alone? Because they actually are doing a job on the red zone against running backs where they're only scoring 29% of the time.
All right, well, here, you only have a few months left in the broadcast. So, all right, I guess you could say that I've been overruled on Daniel Jones. I don't know enough about him, so why should I say anything about it? I don't want to eat my words since
he'll be a great backup somewhere.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, whatever.
He'll be a great backup somewhere.
I don't want to eat my words because I've been eating crow. The last thing I want to mention as a parting shot is a good one. Congratulations, Sandy Alcantara, first Marlin ever to win the Cy Young Award. This guy is a stud. He completes games. He goes deep into games. And I'm happy that a Marlin won a Cy Young Award. And if there's anyone worthy of it, it is definitely him. But that said, okay, let's go around the horn one more time. Jacob Christopher, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Jake the Pundit on Twitter if you want my absolutely politically correct views. Totally. It's like on Sunday nights, it is the Basket Bros with Scott and everybody else. It is Monday nights during the season on NBA Carousel. I might have to ask for Sacramento again. Who knows? Because they're actually pretty good. Tuesday nights with Megan Price's NBA Carousel, by the way. Tuesday nights is confidential during the season. No more 11 o'clocks, thank God. Wednesday nights is Pundit's Pundit and with Scott and Jen and Jay, and then I'm right over here afterwards. And Thursday nights I'm away from Sideline Sports for that night, and I'm with TJ Sanson. We do the Yin and Yang, which talks about film, politics, psychology, lots of different things. Plus we're working on a couple of films, and every once in a while on Fridays when I get invited is the Gauntlet. So I stay pretty busy.
All right, Smoking Jeremy.
All right. I have my post-game shows on Mondays. I have the Wednesday, which is my NFL Roundtable Talks, and then I popped on with you guys tonight. Occasionally, I'm also with you on Thursday nights, and the other one Inside the Pigskin, right?
Yeah, we move you
And
around.
and then I also do Fire Up Michigan on Friday, and then I have my Lions Man Cave chat on Fridays, and then I do the Sunday morning drive with the Sports Empire Network on Sunday mornings. So, yeah, I have a full week. Plus, I write my articles for the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune. You'll find me in the list of authors. And I'm also on the Sports Empire Network with my editorials as well.
Very good. Yeah, Jeremy, you do a fantastic job on Fire Up Michigan on Mondays. All right, JB, go ahead.
So JB_ the program on Twitter. Tuesdays, Sideline Sports, 8:30 p.m. Confidential to be determined when and where. Wednesday nights, we got the J&J Sports Express, the NFL betting show at 7 p.m. Eastern. We come here at 9. And then every other week, we got both sides of the coin with Adam Gold. And then who else? Who knows what other shows I'll be on during the week? Just never know.
Well, everybody gets their exposure. They get around. More power to everyone. Yeah, I'm just glad to have you on. Bree, one more time with us. You're watching the Sports Exchange on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. This show can also be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Tribune South, and and once again, please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. If you want to email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Kudos to Katie Ebling, who does a phenomenal job with every aspect of the operation. I couldn't do this without her. So, great addition of the Sports Exchange. All you guys are always fantastic. Look forward to working with you every time the situation presents itself. So, on behalf of Jacob Christner, Smoke and Jeremy B, and JB Ellis, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Sports Exchange next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. God bless, and good night.